Wow, I think so. Welcome everybody back to our Sunday School Hour, Investigate Hour. A little bit lighter crowd this morning. We got a lot of things going on, so I know there's a lot of people serving. And I'm going to try to limit things to about a half an hour because I know we've all, again, got places we can go serve as well. It's a big day. Hopefully we can get our name as a church and the name of our Savior out to the community today. So I do encourage everybody to participate in that. Okay, that was my little opening prelude there. So I only taught a couple weeks ago, so everybody should know exactly what we went over, right? No, I'm getting a lot of smiles and laughs, so we're going to go over it anyway. You knew that. And it was a pretty short lesson last time. So we'll just kind of hit the highlights. So we were in Genesis 42 last time. If you want to go ahead and go there, we'll be going to 42 and 43 this morning. And we had started our last lesson with the 9 brothers, the 10 minus Simeon, returning home from Egypt with their grain that was paid or unpaid for. Unpaid grain, and without Simeon. Remember, 10 left, only 9 came back. And they had to explain everything that happened to who? Dad, their father Jacob. They said the only way to get Simeon back was to return to Egypt with who? Their youngest brother, Benjamin. What was Jacob's answer to this? Absolutely not. All right, did the brothers just let it drop? Say, okay, bye-bye, Simeon. Or did they try to make a case for going back? They made a case. Who was the first one to speak up? It was the oldest. Reuben, the oldest son. That's his job, right? You're supposed to be like the next guy in the family clan lineage here. You've got to take a leadership role. So he speaks up. What does he say to try to convince his father that he can bring back Simeon? He says, you can do what if I fail? You can kill my 2 sons. That's a pretty harsh bargain. Is that, in my opinion, I spoke about this a little bit last week, do I think that's what he meant? Literally, you can kill my sons if I don't come back. I don't think so. What was so important in this day and age? Your family, your lineage, your descendants. So I think Reuben is saying, I am willing to be cut off from the family, to be disinherited, to be remembered no more if I fail in bringing back my brother. I will just be forgotten from the face of the earth. It's as if I never existed, which is saying a lot in that day and age. Did that convince Jacob? Nope, he's still not doing it. He says he's already lost 2 sons, Simeon and who was the first one? Joseph. He's already down 2, and he's not risking losing anymore. Or again, you have my opinion of maybe he just didn't like Simeon. Who knows? So time passes. What happens to the food that they brought back from Egypt? It runs out. It gets eaten. There's still a famine going on. There's no food other than Egypt. So what does Jacob say to his sons eventually when he looks at the last half-empty bag of grain? What's he say? Go back to Egypt and buy more. What do the brothers do? Probably look at each other in a lot of confusion. Like, well, did he forget what we said beforehand? What brother speaks up this time? It's not Reuben. He's already been shot down. What brother speaks up? Judah. What does Judah say? He says, go down and buy more food. Judah says, not unless you send Benjamin with us. Now, why is it strange for Judah to be taking a larger role in the family right now? What number is Judah? You guys knew I was going to do this, didn't you? Well, you probably got to turn it on first. There we go. What number is Judah? 4. A little odd for the 4th guy down to be stepping up. But from this point on, this is, I think, really overlooked point in the Bible. It's at this moment that Judah starts taking the leadership role in the Israelite nation. It starts with Judah speaking up, and it's going to pass on down through his descendants and ultimately end up in Jesus Christ himself, who is the ultimate authority and the ultimate preeminence. But this is the point where the clan of Judah goes to the forefront. So I think that's kind of an important part that we miss when we just kind of skip through this. All right, so Judah says, no, we're not going. Is this a dangerous thing to say to old dad in the Old Testament era? It is, yes, very much so. How did Jacob respond to Judah's refusal? Does he jump down his throat? Does he stay? Everybody pick up a stone and start throwing it at your brother? The response is almost as a kind of a broken old man questioning, why did you tell that man about your other brother? You have this picture of a broken Jacob. Judah then says that he'll be responsible for Benjamin's safety. He's going to say, I'll be the one that you can hold accountable. If I don't bring both of them back, he steps up, takes the risk, and Jacob finally gives permission for now the 10, the original 9 plus Benjamin, to return to Egypt to buy food. But Jacob shows good business sense here. What does he tell them to take? What kind of gifts does he tell them to take? Spices, aromatic gum, pistachios, we're going to get to that, almonds, yes, all these delicacies that the Egyptian upper class would have had access to, but it's still a very wealthy present that's going to get somebody's attention, and it may even smooth over some of the feelings of them coming back with a grain unpaid for. Now we get to the money part that Earl definitely pointed out. What else are they to take? Double the money. The original amount plus enough to buy more. So we ended the lesson last time with the 10 brothers heading back to Egypt into an unknown fate. Yes, I got to get my nice little drawn out color pictures for you to look at. Jacob saying goodbye to Benjamin. So they are heading back, and they don't know what kind of reception they're going to get, but they're hoping they can get Simeon and come back as an 11. So questions or comments? All right, so we are now in Genesis 43. You're following along. So the brothers, they head back to Egypt, and they end up, eventually after the trip, standing outside of Joseph's house. Remember, my opinion was that Joseph had to be the one to approve all kind of outside sales. Now it's just, if the grain was going to leave Egypt, I think Joseph was the one that had the final say. So they have to come back to where Joseph is, and they end up outside of his house trying to buy grain. Look at verse 16 through 18. When Joseph saw Benjamin with him, he said to his house steward, "Bring the men into the house and slay an animal and make ready, for the men are to dine with me at noon." So the man did as Joseph said and brought the men to Joseph's house. Now the men were afraid because they were brought to Joseph's house. And they said, "It is because of the money that was returned in our sacks the first time that we are being brought in, that he may seek occasion against us and fall upon us and take us for slaves and our donkeys." They're pretty concerned about the donkeys here, which I think is interesting. All right, so you get the impression that Joseph sees them off in the distance, down in the courtyard or somewhere, and gives instructions to a steward while he remains out of sight. He's not revealing himself to him yet, not even, visually. How do you think Joseph felt when he saw Benjamin at that distance? And we've already talked about Joseph's emotions. I mean, he's definitely got the anger, but he's also got just the longing to probably see his family again. All these emotions are gone out, and then he now sees his full brother. The only one he has left, his mother died. Hasn't seen his father in 20-some years either, but he sees his brother. The emotions have to be incredible at this point, too. We'll find out later that Joseph basically breaks down when he kind of talks to him. So you've got to get this picture, just, again, everything running through Joseph. He's not even able to get in front of him at this point. But why does he wait to reveal himself? Still. I mean, he could see Benjamin down there. He could have rushed out and said, "I am Joseph, I am your brother," with a big hug. But yet he still waits to reveal himself. I still think he's just still too mad. He's got so much personal hurt. Remember, they wanted to kill him, then they sold him as a slave. Those are two big things to get over. He's still just got too much hurt that he still isn't willing to go out and just embrace his brother. All right, the brothers are brought to Joseph's private residence. They're afraid. Makes sense. They think this powerful man is setting them up. What did they assume in verse 18 is going to happen? What's their thought process from verse 18? They're going to be slaves. They think that they're going to kind of be let into the house. The steward's going to walk away in there by themselves, and the steward's going to come back with some heavily armed men and say, "Why did you break into our house?" And carry them away as slaves. They think that this Egyptian lord is just looking for an excuse to throw them into prison with their brother Simeon, or maybe even worse. So the brothers try to set the record straight. They kind of try to preempt this. Hey, before we go in the house, let's talk about this. Look at verses 19 through 22. So they came near to Joseph's house steward and spoke to him at the entrance of the house and said, "O my lord, we indeed came down the first time to buy food. And it came about when we came to the lodging place that we opened our sacks, and behold, each man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full. So we have brought it back in our hands. We have also brought down other money in our hand to buy food, for we did not know who put the money in our sacks." They don't want to walk into the house, and when I say house, think, Egyptian palace. Don't think little mud shack. Think, big palace. They don't want to walk in without pleading their case to someone first. And the house steward seems to be the guy in the charge, so he's the one they're going to talk to. What's the steward's response? Verse 23. He said, "Be at ease. Do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had the money." So you kind of get the picture of this exchange. The brothers, they're nervous. They're talking to this house steward. Hey, we brought it back. It's right here. See, here's the money. We're not thieves. But then can you kind of see the steward smiling, saying, "No, I had the money. Wait here," and walking away. What kind of expression do you have in the brother's face at this? Complete confusion, astonishment. He looking a lot at each other, a lot of finger pointing, just pure confusion. What do you think about the steward's comment about God? Did you catch that? He says, "Your God and the God of your father." Do you think the steward is a follower of God? You ever thought about that? Joseph doesn't appear to be a closet believer, right? This is the guy that stood up in front of Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the country, and declared his faith in God. Even when Pharaoh was going to praise Joseph for interpreting the dreams, what did Joseph say? "Yep, heap it on. I'm the guy." No, he said, "Hope. I am a tool of God's. I am God's humble servant. I am nothing." Joseph is not a closet believer. Do you think he shares God with those around him? Who seems to be his closest attendant? This house steward. So you have to, at least I have to think, this steward is hearing a lot about God. He's heard what God has done in Joseph's life. This steward has a lot of knowledge of the events that are going on now. I think this is probably the most trusted guy that Joseph has. So if he's not a believer in God, then I don't know who would be. Now look at the last part of verse 23. What does the steward do next? Then he brought Simeon out to them. Not waiting. As soon as they get there, okay, here's your brother. What do you think the reunion between the brothers and Simeon was like? How do you think the other brothers felt as soon as they saw Simeon walk around the corner or walk through that door? He's alive. There's a chance we're going to get back home. There's a chance. How do you think Simeon was during this? How do you think Simeon had been treated for the past however long period of time? Probably months. I kind of get the picture of Simeon being the most calm and confident of all of them. I think Simeon was probably well taken care of. I'm sure he was well fed. He was probably eating better than what his brothers were back in Canaan when there was nothing. Do you think that Joseph and Simeon had talked in that period of time? We don't know. This is all pure subjection. In my opinion, I think they probably did, but probably not enough for Joseph to be able to spill the secret. I don't think Simeon's in on, the knowledge here, But I think he was probably fairly well taken care of, and I think that had to set the brothers' minds at peace. Like, okay, things might be okay after all, as soon as they see their brother. So the brothers were united, and we get to verses 24 through 25. Then the man, the steward, brought the men into Joseph's house, and he gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave their donkeys fodder. So they prepared the present for Joseph's coming at noon, for they had heard that they were to eat a meal there. Excuse me. The brothers have been on the road for at least a couple weeks' trip to get from Canaan down to Egypt. They're filthy, so they get washed up. This is probably a refreshing time for them to get clean. Their animals probably get the best meal they've had in a while, because the donkeys get some fodder, and they, the brothers, get a chance to get the presents together for Joseph, the Egyptian lord, that Jacob had told them to take. So after a period of time, Joseph comes home. We get to verses 26, 27. When Joseph came home, they brought into the house to him the present which was in their hand, and bowed to the ground before him. Then he asked them about their welfare and said, "Is your old father well, of whom you spoke? Is he still alive?" They said, "Your servant, our father, is well. He is still alive." They bowed down in homage. So the brothers are doing a pretty good job of showing respect to this Egyptian lord who probably has the power of life and death in their minds. They're bowing down, but what's the only thing that Joseph seems to care about? Well, not quite the brother yet. What's his first thought? Dad. How's Dad? It seems like there's a fear, that Jacob may have died since the brothers were there. So I'm sure that Joseph is just relieved to hear, okay, all right, my dad's still alive. Imagine how Joseph would have felt if Jacob had died right before the brothers returning back to Egypt for the second time, and Joseph had missed his chance to see Dad again. I mean, that has to be a fear, and it's explained out here in the text. His first concern is, how's my father? He's alive and well. Okay, now I can keep playing my games once we've got that out of the way. Excuse me. Now he turns his attention to Benjamin, his brother. Look at verses 29 and 30. As he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, he said, "Is this your youngest brother of whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "May God be gracious to you, my son." Joseph hurried out, for he was deeply stirred over his brother, and he sought a place to weep, and he entered his chamber and wept there. Remember, it's been 20 plus years since Joseph has seen Benjamin. How old was Benjamin at that point? A young teenager at best. He was a kid. Has he changed in the past 20 some years? Absolutely. So it kind of makes sense that Joseph has I'm pretty sure that's him. Pretty sure. Hey, is that your brother you brought back? It's been so long. You've got to have that connection. I'm sure, but he asked the question. Once he's identified, Joseph is completely overwhelmed with emotions, and he has to leave. There we go, Joseph crying. I'd like to give you pictures. I'm sure the brothers are confused at this point, because here's this Egyptian lord comes in. How's your father? Well, okay. Oh, this must be your brother. Be gracious. Nice to see you, my son. And then he runs out of the room. The brothers are probably looking at each other, looking at Benjamin. What did you do? Benjamin, I didn't do anything. These are brothers interacting. Come on, this is real stuff. This is real life. There had to be complete confusion there as he runs out of the room. He goes to a chamber, composes himself, and we get to verses 31 and 33. Then he washed his face and came out, and he controlled himself and said, "Serve the meal." So they served him by himself, and them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is loathsome to the Egyptians. Now they were seated before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at each other in astonishment. Now the loathsome part, we're going to eventually get to that, but this is where we kind of get the first hint that the Egyptians don't like outsiders. And that's going to play a very critical role at the end of Genesis and the first part of Exodus. You already got this tension starting to see. But then you get to the end of this little section. Why do the brothers look at each other with astonishment? If you thought about that, I mean, they're sitting down to a table. Why are they astonished about it? I think you're onto it right there. It doesn't appear that they chose where to sit. I mean, first of all, I don't see the brothers feeling like, hey, I like that seat over there, and just kind of mingling around and finding a way to get to the table. It seems like they were seated, because that's what the verse says, probably by Joseph's steward. That would make sense. And there's no record of them telling Joseph of their birth order. I mean, they may have, but there's no record of that. So when the steward seats them in order, it's very possible that Joseph thought, or that the brothers thought, that Joseph was using some kind of supernatural power to read their minds. The reason I think this is because in the text, he talks about divination. I think this is where that excuse comes in. So the brothers, they didn't tell how old they were. The steward just says, you, and he seats them according to their youth, or to their age. And the brothers just look at each other. How did he know that? We didn't tell him. You get that look of astonishment, probably a little bit of fear. And this is the event that Joseph is going to use to continue his games in a few verses. All right, verse 34. He, Joseph, took portions to them from his own table, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. So they feasted and drank freely with him. Now, if you look at the text that we read earlier, this isn't one big banquet table. First of all, they probably weren't sitting at tables. They were probably sitting on the ground. But you've got Joseph in the most important place in the room. If you picture a room, he's probably dead center. And then you have the Egyptians that were eating with them over here. And then you've got the brothers over here, completely distant. Joseph's table, even though it was just one person, probably had enough food to feed just about everybody there, just on his. I mean, they're not going to bring out to the second most powerful man in Egypt, here is your plate, sir, with a little garnish on the side and a little drizzle of meat. No. They are going to pile the food onto his table, and he is going to pick whatever he wants. But he decides not to keep it to himself. I mean, everybody else has food too, but whose food's going to be the best in the room? Joseph's is going to be the best. And what's he decide to do with that? Here, why don't you take this, take it over there to them. Take it to them. Take it. Oh, that guy on the end, the young one, why don't you take this to him? The brothers, you have to think, are enjoying them. They're confused. They're astonished, it said, like being seated. They're, what's going on? We don't understand. But then the food hits there. How well have these guys been eating in the past years? Not too good. Remember, the famine. They've been eating grain for at least the past few months. And then they get the best selection in the entire land of Egypt set in front of them. I think all of their doubt, confusion, astonishment just went out the window. Food. Really good food. And they start eating. And then Benjamin gets 5 times the food. But they don't care because they've got food in front of them that's really good too. So you end chapter 43 with just everybody seeming to enjoy the moment. The brothers seem to be put at ease because it says they feasted and drank freely with them. Everybody's just having a good time there at this meal. And that closes out Genesis 43. So we're going to go just a little bit more. But any comments or questions before we move to the next?
Is that some form of not coveting what Benjamin had, being satisfied? Someone?
I would think so. I think they're just happy to have what they have. I'm sure there's a little bit of jealousy when it sets down in front of them, but as soon as they start eating, I think they're just happy to have good food and lots of it, all they could eat. I mean, when's the last time they probably left a table with food on the table, not being able to finish it because they were too full? I mean, they've been going through a famine. So you get the impression there with the,
Good thing to look at what we have and not what someone else has.
yeah, I mean, definitely a good lesson for that. So you get the feeling everybody had a good meal together. The meal ends and you get to verses 1 and 2 of chapter 44. Then he, Joseph, commanded his house steward, saying, "Fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack. Put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, and his money for the grain." And he did, the steward did as Joseph had told him. So my thought is this cup is probably covered in precious stones. I mean, you ever see Indiana Jones' Last Crusade, the whole cup thing at the end? And you think the prettiest cup there, that was probably the one that Joseph gave to his steward. It had to be fairly unique because, if there were just an old clay cup in the pot or in the sack, that wouldn't do it. Joseph wants to tie the brothers to a particular object, so this cup had to be unique enough to serve that purpose. Is Joseph just being nice by giving the money back? Is he just being a nice guy by, hey, here's your money back too, along with this very expensive cup? I want you guys to go home with a little souvenir from our, nice meal together. Or does he have an ulterior motive? Absolutely, he is still playing his games with his brothers. Verses 3 through 5. As soon as it was light, the men were sent away, they and their donkeys. They had just gone out of the city and were not far off when Joseph said to his house steward, "Up, follow the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid good for evil? Is not this the one from which my Lord drinks and which he uses for divination? You have done wrong in doing this.'" This is what a lawyer today calls entrapment. Absolutely. Joseph is setting up his brothers. He's secretly giving back the money, but just to make sure that it's an open and closed case, he adds his own personal cup. They're going to be caught red-handed, and they're going to have absolutely no defense. If just the money's in the sack, it's money. Well, we had other money that we threw in there for safekeeping. Or, well, they gave it back last time. What's the big deal? But now you've got this cup that comes into the story. That is going to leave them with absolutely no excuse. It's Joseph's personal cup. There is no reason they should have it. There's no out for them at this point. Why is Joseph doing all this? Why didn't he just reveal himself to his brothers to start with? Looking back, his brothers walked through the door for the very first time. Why didn't they just say, "My family"? First of all, he's just mad and angry. I think we've talked about that. He doesn't want to reveal himself. He throws them in prison. He's so mad at them. Finally calms down. During the 3 days that his brother has looked up, he comes up with a way to test them. He wants to see if his anger is still justified, or he wants to see if they've changed. He wants to see if they're still the terrible people that he remembers, and he wants to see if the brothers are going to just save themselves, or if they've started to care about a single brother in those past 20 years. Are they in it for themselves, or do they now finally care for each other? Are they going to have the love for the one brother, the love and caring that he didn't have when they sold him into slavery? He's testing them out. If they've changed and they've come back to reclaim their brother, then he should also be able to see Benjamin. But now Benjamin is standing right in front of him. The brothers have passed the test. They've demonstrated a concern for a brother, and now they've come back. But yet, Joseph is still not revealing himself. I don't think that Joseph is convinced that the brothers have truly changed yet. They've passed test number 1, but now he needs to give them another test before he can finally let his guard down and open himself up to his family. And the next test is going to involve completely breaking them down to the point where they have absolutely no control of anything. And that's the point where he can truly see what his brothers are made of. And this second test, where they are at rock bottom, no control, he's going to be able to make a decision. And that's where we're going to leave off for this morning. You can read ahead and figure out what happens next, but I got to leave you a cliffhanger, right? All right, any comments or questions? All right, there are a lot of things, as we already talked about, that need to get done. Tables are up here, right? So those are the ones that need to actually go down to the basement. Please remember your times. Please be in prayer for this afternoon, because like I said, this is a great chance for Cedar Grove in the name of God to be spread throughout the community. So let's be in prayer that that happens and that we can be used as servants this afternoon. Any other comments, questions, announcements? All right, let's go ahead and close in prayer then. Father, we are so thankful for another Lord's Day, just for a chance to come together as a body of believers, to study your scriptures, to lift praise to you, to come around your table and to lift up these prayers. We do ask that you will guide all the activities this afternoon. Just help, whether it be serving hot chocolate, whether it be going through the parade, whether it be just running with a Cedar Grove shirt on, that the name of this church will be spread to the community, and that the church will point to you, and that people can come to know you through our efforts this afternoon. Just please give us wisdom, please give us restraint, please just help us to be used as servants however we need to. Just guide us as we depart. In Christ we pray. Amen. Thank you.